Everyone remember what we're holding? Purim. Very good. So yesterday we finished the halachos pertaining to the Megillah. We covered a few more mitzvahs that when it comes to Purim, there's a minhag, the custom is to wear Shabbos clothing, so on and so forth. We learned about the fast day, who is exempt from the fast, who has to fast. From when you can read the Megillah, how to fulfill the mitzvah by listening to every single word. What happens if you don't have a kosher Megillah? Actually, does anyone remember what happens if you don't have a kosher Megillah in the city? What do? One person reads for everyone, or does everyone read by themselves? Yes, everyone reads for themselves. And I'll ask you a trick question. Let's see if anyone can guess the answer. Why does everyone have to read for themselves and not one person just read from a chumash for everyone? I told you it's a trick question. The answer is because the mitzvah is to do it with a Megillah. So and usually the custom is that one person reads for everyone. Now, if somebody's going to take a chumash and do the same thing, it's going to make a big mistake that people are going to think that, you can also fulfill the mitzvah with a chumash. But if everyone is reading for themselves, that's usually not what's not done in shul. You usually have one person for reading for everyone. And even if they're reading alone, there's still a Bal Kodesh for everyone. Then you won't come to make such a mistake. So that's why if there's absolutely no kosher Megillah in town, obviously a blessing is not recited and everyone reads for themselves. Now, before we continue, I want to share a beautiful vart that the Rebbe says. We'll explain it in a very short way. What's the whole inyan of Purim? We know that it's when the Yidden stood on Mesiras Nefesh not to change their derech, not to change their way of Torah mitzvahs. They stood strong. And the Alter Rebbe writes in Torah that they also al daita machshavas chutz. They didn't even have a thought not to give up any part of their Yiddishkeit. They were fully committed to the Yiddishkeit that it didn't even occur to them to even think to give anything up. That's how strongly committed they were to Torah and to mitzvahs, to the Eibishter. So the Gemara also,
But you say that they had to be Mesiras Nefesh, but at the end of the day, your reason they hated Mordechai first is because Mordechai was the only one who wouldn't bow down to them. It means that they were bound down.
Correct. And then once the Gzeiros, the decree started to happen, it shook them up. And they realized that they got to get the act together, so to speak. By the Midbar also, it's brought in Tanya, when the Jewish people were in the desert, they were also not up to par, so to speak. There was also things going on which are not okay. So what happened? When Moshe Rabbeinu screamed at them, so to speak, that you're not going into Eretz Yisrael, whatever that Imamish gave it to them, then all of a sudden they, the Klippa went away a little bit, and they were able to re-tap into the Nefesh of the Kiss to realize, wow, we have gone way too far, and they recommitted to the Eibishter. So by Purim, we find something very, very special. The Gemara tells us that when it comes to Purim is an acceptance of Matan Torah. Purim is an acceptance of the giving of the Torah. What does that mean? That means like this, that when Hashem gave the Torah on Mount Sinai, what happened? Exactly. Kaf aleim har kigigas. The Eibishter literally put a mountain over us and said, if you don't accept the Torah, I'm dropping the mountain on you. So do we really have a choice? Not really, right? You're forced into it. Okay. Comes Purim. So what does that show us? It's Milamaila, from above to below. Meaning we became a Jewish nation we were kind of forced into it. It wasn't from the bottom up that we accepted it. Purim is completely different. Purim is we on our own accepted the Torah from the Eibishter. We on our own went on Mesiras Nefesh to keep the Torah and to fully accept the Torah what the Eibishter gave us. So it's kiblu kiblu kvar. They upheld what they already accepted. You can accept, but sometimes you're forced into it. Kimu, but now it came from them. They on their own right accepted, upheld what they accepted. That's a very, very, very special thing about Purim. It's such a special day. It's mamish a little matan Torah, so to speak. The Torah was already given, but mitzad us on our part, we fully accepted the Eibishter's Torah. We fully accepted Hashem's Torah. Now, the Rebbe explains that this inyan, this idea about Purim, we actually see this idea in the mitzvahs themselves. What are the 4 mitzvahs of Purim? Seudas, yeah. Reading the Megillah twice, correct. Mishloach manos and Matanos Laevyonim, which is reading the Megillah, right? Seudas means to have the meal. Matanos Laevyonim is to give tzedakah to the poor. And Mishloach manos is to give gifts to your friends. Ish l'reyehu, to all of your friends. What do we see over here? Let's analyze every single mitzvah, and we're going to see how really each one of them has a special connection to this general theme that Purim is about, our acceptance of the Torah on our own right. So Megillah is a part of Torah itself, right? It's a part of Torah. So Torah, we learn and we study all the time. Comes Purim, there's a mitzvah to add on to your learning, to also add the Megillah, which is also part of Torah. So what are we doing? We're taking the Torah that we learn throughout the year generally, and we add on to our Torah. We add on to our learning of Torah. That's number 1. Seudas, which is another mitzvah that we have on Shabbos, right? It's no new mitzvah over here. Megillah is not really a new mitzvah. Megillah is we're reading a part of Torah in public, right? But it's not like, let's say, Rosh Hashanah. There's a new mitzvah, we have to blow the shofar. Pesach, there's a new mitzvah, we have to eat matzah. Purim, we're taking an existing mitzvah of learning Torah, and we're adding on even more to it. We're going to read the Megillah. We're not just going to suffice with the study that we do that day, but we add on to our limud Torah. We add on to our learning and studying of Torah. That's number 1. The Seudas, right? A Seudas is a mitzvah. Even though you're eating and you're enjoying, at the end of the day, this is a mitzvah. It's called the Seudas mitzvah, a meal, which is a mitzvah. So we have that on Shabbos, we have that on Yom Tov, and now we're adding onto it on Purim. So again, we took an existing mitzvah, and now we're adding onto it. We're doing even more. Matanos Laevyonim, giving tzedakah. You have a mitzvah to give tzedakah throughout the entire year. Over here, Purim has something special. It's called Hapeshet Yad Noisnim Lai. Whoever asks, you give it to them. You go out of your way to add in an existing mitzvah of tzedakah. Something that really throughout the year you're not obligated to do, because sometimes, if somebody's asking for tzedakah, depending on what, you are entitled to ask, what exactly is going on over here? What are you collecting for? What happens? When it comes to Purim, the halacha is whoever asks, you give. So what do? We take the mitzvah of tzedakah and we add even more into it. We just give. And then Matanos Laevyonim, what do we see from Matanos Laevyonim? Matanos Laevyonim is Avos Yisrael, right? Avos Yisrael, loving a fellow Jew. This we have the entire year. But on Purim, you take the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael and you take it to a new level, and you go and you send gifts to your friend. You don't do that throughout the year usually. Maybe for a birthday, if it's a very close friend, whatever it is, so on and so forth. But here, in the random day, so to speak, of the year, you're going out of your way and you're taking the mitzvah Avos Yisrael to a whole new level, and you're sending a gift. You're not just sending a text message, "Hi, how are you? We haven't spoken in a while," or a phone call. You're going out of your way to have Avos Yisrael, and you're adding by sending a gift. So what does that all have in common? You're taking the mitzvahs that we have already and you're adding onto them even more. You're not adding new mitzvahs. You're taking the existing mitzvah and you're adding onto, taking it to a whole new level. What does this show us? When somebody is excited about something, you go beyond the letter of the law, so to speak. When somebody has an excitement, a passion, you don't just suffice with the bare minimum. You go out of your way to add onto it. And this is the whole theme of Purim. The whole theme of Purim is that we on our own accepted the Torah. Right? It's no longer a burden that Hashem gave us. On Purim, we accepted it on our own right, with our own free choice. And this shows itself in the mitzvahs of Purim. That by Purim, we take the existing mitzvahs that we already have and we add on into every single one of them, because we show that we love the Torah and we fully accept it and we are taking it through and through, and we're not just sufficing with the bare minimum. So this is a beautiful, beautiful thing that the Rebbe teaches us, concept that the Rebbe teaches us. And it's not just Purim, but we should take this and really internalize it to our day-to-day life, that we're so lucky that we're Jewish. It's the biggest blessing you can ever have. You have an internal connection to the Eibishter, to his Torah, to his mitzvahs. This is it doesn't get better than this. It's an eternal membership. You can't ever lose it. Okay, now let's learn about the mitzvahs that we just spoke about. Siman Kuf Mem Beis, chapter 142 in the Hebrew, page 974. In the English, page 975. Okay. Hilchos Mishloach manos, the halachas of sending gifts, Ish l're'ehu Matanos Laevyonim, and giving also gifts to the poor, Seudas Purim, and the meal, the feast of Purim. Aleph, the first halacha. Chayav kol adam l'shleach l'chol hapachis la'adam echad shtei matanos. V'chsiv u'mishloach manos ish l're'ehu. Mashma shtei matanos la'echad. So every single person on Purim has an obligation to send at least 2 gifts, and we'll see exactly what those gifts have to be, to one person. Like the pasuk says, u'mishloach manos ish l're'ehu. Like the pasuk says, and sending gifts from one person to his friend. When it says gifts, it doesn't say gift, it says gifts, lashon rabin, right? Mash mashtei matanos la'echad, at least 2 gifts for one person. Yeah, so many people think, when it comes to Matanos Laevyonim, giving tzedakah, extra gifts to the needy, you have to give to at least 2 people. So the same thing as when it comes to giving gifts to your friend. The answer is no. When it comes to Matanos, Mishloach manos, to giving gifts to your friends, the mitzvah is 2 gifts to one person. If you did that, you have fulfilled the mitzvah. The custom is people give more, but the bare minimum, the obligation is just 2 gifts to one person. And whoever adds in sending gifts to their friends, and by the way, friends includes every single yid, because the etz of every single yid is a friend. So it says, this is praiseworthy. So you give more gifts to more yidden, this is a praiseworthy act, but the bare minimum is 1 gift to 2 people. 2 gifts to one person. Nevertheless, mutav laharbes b'matanos laevyonim melaharbes b'seudasay v'mishloach manos l're'eim ki ein simcha gedela u'mefayaris l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu ela l'sameach lev aniyim v'yoseimim v'almanis. So even though we said that it's praiseworthy to send more gifts to your friends, nevertheless, what's even better, what's even better is not to, if you have a choice, you can give more gifts to friends, or you can help more people who are needy. What's the halacha? Who do you think you should give to? To the needy, right? Because, well, it's self-explanatory. If somebody doesn't have, then obviously they take precedence, yeah? So it's better to give more tzedakah to those who need than to add in your own personal meal and then to send gifts to your friends. Why? Because the reason is given because ein simcha gedela umefeyeres l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no greater simcha, there's no greater happiness and more glory for Hashem than to give to make happy the heart of the needy, orphans and widows. If somebody goes ahead and goes out of the way to help more and more of those who truly need, this is a tremendous simcha, a tremendous happiness by Hashem, and it's a tremendous glory for Hashem. And somebody lightens the heart, makes happy the heart of those who are unfortunate. He's actually compared to the Shechina, to the divine presence. Can you imagine that? By you doing this mitzvah, by simply helping somebody who's really in need, you are similar, you're daima l'Shechina. Like it says, to revive the ruach, the spirit of those who are low, meaning they have a low spirit, and lahachi is to revive the leiv of the nitkoyim, those who are crushed. Right? So if somebody's in such a position in their life, and you go ahead out of your way and you help them, this is tremendous. This is really, really, really big. Now that we learned what the bare minimum for the obligation is, 2 gifts to one person. Whoever adds is praiseworthy, but what's even better is not to add in this, but to add in giving tzedakah, Matanos Laevyonim. What constitutes a gift for this mitzvah? To fulfill this mitzvah, what do you have to do? What kind of gift do you have to give? So we know you have to give 2. Oh, very good, food. In this aspect, Mishloach manos is only referring to ready to eat food. For example, meat and fish which are already cooked and not raw. Or something which is sweet, canned, right? Fruits, a kais yayin, or a cup of wine, a made vash, or any similar delicacies. This is all acceptable. So it's very, very simple. To fulfill the mitzvah, it has to be 2 foods, and it can be anything. And there's a big misconception that it has to be 2 separate brachas. Right? You have to give something which is mezainas and shahakol, for example, or hadama and mezainas, or hagafen and shahakol, whatever it is, right? 2 different brachas. It's not the case. It can be 2 things of the same brachas as long as it's 2 types of foods. And it's very clear that this is the halacha, because look inside. What does it say? Kagoin, basar, v'dagim, uv'shalom. Meat and fish which are cooked. When you give that, you fulfill the mitzvah. These are 2 foods which are both a bracha of shahakol. Right? And those are the 2 examples given together. Basar, v'dagim, uv'shalom. So you could refute this proof, but this is a big discussion in the Paiskim. So at the end of the day, if you give, as long as you give 2 types of food, even if it's the same bracha, you have still fulfilled the mitzvah. Oh, and it's important that it's ready to eat. So technically, if you give an instant soup, those that you buy in the store, most people don't eat it raw, they eat it cooked. So that should not be used from Mishloach manos. It should be food which you can actually eat as is. Gimel, the third halacha. Oh, and there's another discussion I want to bring it up. Even if you're not doing it now, but if you're going to do it down the road, there's a big discussion. Many stores, what they do is they allow you to purchase ready-made Mishloach manos, or if you're making your own Mishloach manos and you want to be fancy a little bit, sometimes you send things in a bowl or in something which requires tefillah. Right? You're learning now with Rabbi Hanok the halachas of Tilas Kalim. So a very interesting halacha is, in order to be able to immerse a vessel, it has to be a kli seuda, something which is a vessel made for the seuda, for eating. If it's in the store, it has a halachic status. It doesn't have the halachic status of a kli seuda, of a keli, which is meant to eat from. Rather, right now it's an object which is meant for the purpose of business. Once it comes into your property as a consumer, now you're going to use it for your meals, to eat from it, right? So only at the point where when it comes into your own possession, does it gain the status of a kli seuda, of a vessel which is made for eating. At that point, you can table it. So what happens when you go to the store to buy it? So while it's still in the store, it does not have the status of something which needs to be tabled. Why not? Because the store is not using it to eat from. The store is using it as a product to sell. When you purchase it, you're also not using it as a product to eat from. Rather, you're doing it weiter, to give it to somebody else. Only once it comes into the property of your friend, then they're going to use it for a kli seuda, for a vessel for the purpose of a meal. And only then is it required to be tabled. So what do? If you want to table it for them, if you want to use it already beforehand, and we learned, remember, we spent a day on Tilas Kalim, that you can't use a keli, you can't use a vessel until it was tabled. So you can't just use it and give it to your friend. It should be tabled first. So what do? On one hand, you can't table it yet because it's not made for your meal yet. It's still considered a business product. On the other hand, you can't use it yet because it's not tabled. So it's a catch-22. So it's very simple. What do? You can make a kinyan. A kinyan is a form of acquisition for your friend. By raising it and saying, this is for my friend, this so-and-so, they have acquired it. Or you can ask somebody else to do it for you. They have now acquired it. It's now theirs. And now it belongs to them. And now, once it belongs to them, you can table it for them. Because now it became a keli, a vessel, which is made for the purpose of a seuda. This is the mainstream accepted halachic psak, the halachic, let's say psak in English, the halachic ruling. Yes, thank you. Yeah. That's a very good point. And when you give it to them, you should say that you already tabled it for them. So they shouldn't come to table it and make an unnecessary blessing. There are those that are lenient that you can table it regardless, because we don't care so much that the store is using it for selling purposes, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it's a plate. And being that it's a plate, it's already a kli seuda, it's a vessel which is already made for food. So there are two different opinions amongst the halachic authorities, but it's accepted already that you make a kinyan, you make a form of acquisition for your friend, not to run into any halachic questions. I'm just putting it out there, even if you're not doing it, so at least it's in the back of your mind. If you ever do it down the road, you should just know, even if you don't remember, you should at least know that there's a question to ask. Okay. Gimel, the third halacha. Kol Adam Afilo Ani should be Israel Hamakabel Tzedakah. Every single person, even somebody who is themselves a recipient of charity, meaning they themselves are not doing too well. Chayav litin chalapache shtei matanos l'shnei aniyim. They still are obligated to give at least 2 gifts to 2 people who are needy. The Hainu, what does that practically mean? Matana achas l'chol echad. 1 gift to each and every person. So you need to give to 2 people. So you can't give 2 things of tzedakah to 1 person. No, you have to find 2 different separate people and give it to 2 separate people. 1 gift of money to each person. Matanos Laevyonim. Mashma shtei matanos l'shnei aniyim. Matanos, you have to give gifts. Laevyonim. Avyonim is also over here used in the plural tense. So we see you have to give gifts to those who need it. So the bare minimum of something which is lashon rabbin, plural is 2. So we say 2 and 2. So 1 gift for each. The aim medaktakim b'Mishloach Purim, just like we mentioned earlier, we don't. We're not medaktik. We don't really check into who we're giving to. Whoever stretches out their arm to take, we give it to them. What happens? You went home, or you went to a shliach, you went anywhere, and there's no poor people that you can give to. Okay, today there's a very simple solution. Today you can do it online. But let's say you don't have, the internet is out, the whole Purim. You can't do it online. You can't make a phone donation. What do? Oh, let's see. You should set aside money and keep it by you. And she's you keep the money with you until you find somebody you can give it to, and then you can give it to them, even if it's after Purim. Or what you can do is you can send it to somebody you know who's in need. Either or is okay. So you send it on Purim, so even though they're not receiving it on Purim, as long as you sent it, this is already good. Or if you don't want to do that, you keep it with you, you set it aside and keep it with you until you find somebody who you're able to give it to. Dalet. Kol hanashim chayavis b'Mishloach manos Matanos Laevyonim. It's not a mitzvah just for men, it's also a mitzvah for a lady, for all ladies. They're also obligated in Mishloach manos and sending gifts to their friend, Matanos Laevyonim, and gifts to those who need it. And this is important. Mishloach manos, when you give gifts, tishlach isha leisha, a lady should send to another lady, ve'ish leish, and a man should send to another man. So not to mix, a lady gives to a lady, a man gives to a man. What happens if you're giving to a family, which a family is made out of a husband and wife and children? So if, practically when you're giving the gift, let's say you're giving it, so you give it to the wife, to the mother of the family. And if a man is giving it, so he'll give it to the man of the house. Brother's different, yeah. Brother's different, but this is if it's not family. Aval Matanos Laevyonim, giving tzedakah for those who need. Tzedakah, we don't make this difference. Tzedakah, a lady can send to a man. Also the opposite, a man can send to a lady. When it comes to tzedakah, this is not a factor. So in Mitzvah Hashem, when you build your homes, it says over here that some ladies rely on their husbands that they fulfill the mitzvah for them. The halacha is einay nachin. That's not the proper thing to do. Rather, the lady herself should give also Mishloach manos, not to just rely on her husband. And the same thing is with Matanos Laevyonim. It has to come from her own gifts and her own tzedakah. It's a mitzvah for everyone equally. Okay. Hey, the fifth halacha. Hayavim la'echel v'lishtes v'lismayach b'purim. There's a mitzvah, an obligation to eat, to drink, and to be happy. Drink does not mean to drink alcohol. Drink means to have drinks that you like. V'lismayach b'purim, and to be happy on Purim. Gam belel arba asra yismach v'yabek tzas b'seuda. Also on the night of Purim, Yismach, you should rejoice. V'yabed tzas b'seuda. You should also add a little bit in your seuda, in your meal. U'chashachol b'mitzay Shabbos, when it falls after Shabbos. So Purim is practically what that means. Purim falls on a Sunday. So we just said, what do? You have to add a little bit in your meal on the night of Purim. Even though on Shabbos you have to have a third meal, Seudas Shlishis, you should still eat a little bit less on Shabbos, to add, so you should have more of an appetite to eat a little bit more on the Seudah of Purim by night. Now, as we're going to see inside, what we eat by night, the night of Purim, is not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is by day. This is just a minhag to be marbeh, to add a little bit in the Seudah by night, but this does not fulfill the mitzvah. The mitzvah of eating, of having the meal, is only by day, as we're going to see right now. Nevertheless, the meal that we do but the night of Purim, one does not fulfill the mitzvah. Why? The ikar hasauda mitzvasa shetehei bayim. The main mitzvah of the sauda, of the meal of Purim, is that it should be by day. The chsiv, like the pasuk says, how do we know it should be by day? Because in the Megillah it says yemei mishta. It says the days of the feast, days of feastings. Yeah, feasting. Sorry. So the days of feasting. This is how we learn out that the Seudah, the feast, has to be by day and not by night. Yesh lahadlik neiris derech simcha. One should light candles in a way of happiness. Yom Tov, and similar to a Yom Tov. Gam k'she'esim haseudah bayim. Even when we make the Seudah by day. V'gam b'leil chamisha aser tzarich l'smayach tzas. Also, after Purim, going into the night after Purim, there's still a mitzvah of the Smayach Tzas to rejoice a little bit. And this is actually the custom. You'll see what happens. What do most people do? They start the meal by day, a little after Mincha, towards the end of the day, and it goes into the night. This way, what do you accomplish? You ate the meal by day, and you're continuing the happiness, the rejoicing into the night. So you get the best of both worlds. You get both mitzvahs with one meal. Gam Matanos Laevyonim, also giving gifts to the needy. Gifts to your friends. Their mitzvah is also by day. So this is important. So if you gave tzedakah by night, or if you gave your friend a gift by night, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and you have fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah, but the mitzvah of Purim is that it should be done by day. So if you did it by night, you still have to fulfill the mitzvah by day, because until it was done by day, it was not fulfilled. And since people are so busy sending gifts, right? You'll see in Crown Heights, people are knocking on doors, giving out to people who they know, family members, so on and so forth. So therefore, that takes up a big part of the day. We make part of the Seudah by night. mincha be'edah yom gadol, and everyone davens mincha much earlier. V'eisen es seuda lacher mincha, and seuda, the meal, happens after we daven mincha. So you daven mincha, let's say, just for example, 3:15, right? You're still busy, you're giving out a few gifts, and then you have your seuda. That's usually what's done because most of the day is spent fulfilling the other mitzvahs of Purim. And it's important to remember that it's very, very important to actually fulfill a mitzvah. I remember once, as a bacher, we went on Mitzvahim. The whole day we were knocking on doors, fulfilling the mitzvahs with other Yidden. And my chavrusa from Mitzvahim, the person that I went with on Mitzvahim, it was almost the end of the day already, and I realized, wow, I was busy the whole day doing mitzvahs with other Yidden, that I myself didn't give Matanos Laevyonim, and I didn't do Mishloach manos. He was helping other people to do it, but he himself never did it. So it's important, whatever you're doing, if you're going on Mitzvahim, if you're sitting and learning, whatever you're doing, very important to remember to get the mitzvahs done. That's the ikr, that's the main thing. And in the end, it was kind of he didn't have anything with him. He was so busy with Mitzvahim that he really didn't have anything to fulfill the mitzvah with. So make sure ahead of time you arrange everything, you do the mitzvah as early as you could. That way, it's off your mind. You can continue with Mitzvahim, you can continue with Afarbrengen, whatever you're doing. But can't forget about the main thing is to actually fulfill the mitzvahs of the day. And also when it comes to the meal, as we mentioned, the custom is that it continues into the night, but at least the main part of the meal should be fulfilled by day. How does it work over here? The meal is by you go to different families, or okay, it's a shame, you'll see. So it's very important before you join the meal, before you have a mincha, to have the mitzvahs fulfilled, not to, just in case, not to miss out. Erev Shabbos. Last year Purim, if I'm not mistaken, Purim was on Friday, on Erev Shabbos. So this is important to remember. It doesn't happen so often, but when it does, just remember, if Purim falls on a Friday, on Adar Shabbos, the day before Shabbos, when should the meal be? Not like the regular days that you do it after Mincha. It should be done in the morning in honor and respect of Shabbos, so you shouldn't come into Shabbos full and not be able to eat your meal properly. And it's proper to learn some Torah before you start the Seudah, the meal. You should learn some Torah before. For the Yidden, it was light. With Ashinin Eira Zu Torah. That light is Torah. Now it's brought down the Rama brings that we start to learn the halachas of Pesach on Purim. Because there's a custom, it's really halacha, but the main halacha was before 30 days before the Chag, before any Yom Tov, one has an obligation to learn the halachas. In the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when we learned the halachas of the karbanos that we had to bring, it can't have a mum, it can't have any blemish, so on and so forth. It was an actual takana. Moshe Rabbeinu is a whole discussion, the Gemara Psachim, it was how many days before, whatever it is. Now, the custom, even though we don't have karbanos today, the custom is still accepted that we learn 30 days, 30 days before the Yom Tov, we begin learning the halachas of the upcoming Yom Tov. So it's brought down, Purim, you start learning the halachas of, what comes after Purim? Pesach. It's came out 30 days, right before Pesach. So you start learning the halachas of Pesach. So you sit down before the meal, you open up a Shulchan Aruch, you open up whatever books they have available. I'm sure there's plenty, I just don't know what they are. And you start learning. Just get yourself ready. Pesach is coming. So to familiarize yourself a little bit with Shemir Hashem, the classes we're going to be covering, how does it work? Over here, You going for Pesach or Pesach is here? Most of them are here. Oh, very good. Very, very good. Okay, so Mitzvah Hashem, we'll learn the halachas, how the kasher, how the seder should be, so on and so forth. So this is a very, very good thing that they do it here. There are those that say that it's you should eat seeds on Purim, different types of seeds. Zeicher, l'zereisen, she'achla Daniel chaver b'Bavel, as to commemorate the seeds that Daniel and his chaverim, the other tzaddikim, ate with him when they were in Bavel. Zeicher l'zereinu she'achla Esther, and also Esther ate seeds. So we eat seeds on Purim as a zeicher, as a commemoration for this. The Isa b'Gemara v'Shana v'Snarisel l'Teiv she'achila l'zereinim. Okay. In Birchas Hamazon, we'll deal with that in next class. Okay, so let's just make a quick review before we finish. There are 3 mitzvahs of Purim. What is the mitzvah of Mishloach manos? What's the bare minimum? What do you have to do? 2 what? 2 people? No. Oh, 2 gifts for 1 person. Excellent. Second mitzvah, which is Matanos Laevyonim. What's the mitzvah of that? Extra tzedakah, which is, what's the bare minimum? 2 for 2, correct. 2 forms of tzedakah for 2 separate people. And the Seudah, the custom is to have it, when do we have the Seudah usually? After Mincha. And if it falls on a Friday? In the morning. For the L'kavod Shabbos, to honor Shabbos, not, so we shouldn't come into Shabbos when we're already full. As we mentioned, there is a custom to have a little bit more on the night of Purim and the night after Purim. This is not the mitzvah of the Seudah, it's a custom to do. What takes precedence? Matanos Laevyonim, giving tzedakah, or giving gifts to your friends? Tzedakah. So if you have an option to give more tzedakah, or you have an option to give more gifts, the answer is 1 gives more gifts. What is acceptable for a gift from Mishloach manos? Something cooked, or something which is ready to eat. It should be 2 different things, and they should be ready to eat. Yeah. Who is obligated in the mitzvah of Matanos Laevyonim, of giving tzedakah to the poor? Everyone. Even somebody who himself is a recipient of tzedakah still has an obligation to give tzedakah to people. And as we mentioned, the mitzvah is equal to a husband and a wife. And when one builds their home, they should not rely on their husband to fulfill the mitzvah for them. Rather, the wife has her own obligation to give Matanos Laevyonim, to give the tzedakah to those who need, gifts to those who need, and to give gifts to your friends. Mishloach manos. They have their own obligation. And who gives to who? Correct. A woman to a woman and a man to a man. And if you have family members, that's different. That's fine. Okay. And it's Hashem. We will continue next week. Sure.
This last part that talk about like the last part that talk about like the semen.
The different seeds.
Yeah, it's like when it's a custom Chabad or no?
No, it's not really a custom Chabad.
So like
It's not so done. It's a custom which is brought down. A lot of people, most people don't do it, but it is a valid custom.